Hello and welcome to Lunch and Learn Wednesdays with Venture Portland. My name is Jacob Falkenberg, and today we're going to be talking about Portland Means Progress. And a lot of businesses are interested in infusing diversity, equity, and inclusion into their business practices, but they don't really know where to start. So we're joined today by a special guest, Andrea Gall. From Prosper Portland, and who is also the project manager of Portland Means Progress, who's going to talk a little bit about what is Portland Means Progress, and ways, some simple ways that your business can start to think about culture change and infusing some DEI practices into your business operations, your organization's operations. So, without further ado, welcome, Andrea. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name's Andrea Gall. I use she, her pronouns. Like Jacob shared, I'm with Prosper Portland, and I support an initiative called Portland Means Progress. So I'm excited to share it with you today. Like Jacob said, I would love if you raise your hand and interrupt with questions. I think online sessions can be tough that way, that you're out in the abyss. So please, I'm going to share some resources in the chat during my presentation, and I welcome you to engage with those while I'm speaking, just because I want it to be engaging and interactive, and for y'all to feel like you leave this space with resources that you can use that can help you do your work better. So with that, I will get my presentation all queued up. So just give me one brief moment. Let's see. And Jacob, if you can give me a thumbs up if it looks good. All right. So as I shared, I'm with Prosper Portland. Portland Means Progress is an initiative staffed by the city with Prosper Portland. But it's really critical that I share that we don't do this work alone. So as you see at the bottom of the screen, there's a lot of logos on there. It's because all of the work is done through partnership with our key partners. These partners have been working with us since the launch of the initiative, and they really are key in us building an initiative that supports both community and businesses in the way that we do our work. So what is it? What is Portland Means Progress? Portland Means Progress is a citywide initiative that supports businesses to act and be accountable in racial equity commitments. And so just for clarity, when I say businesses, that can include nonprofits, it can include government agencies. Really, our vision is that every business and organization in the city is committing to take formal action to advance racial equity. But I'll use the word business through the presentation, just so that the presentation doesn't take 2 hours long, because I spend the whole time listing everyone who can partner with us. So businesses commit to taking at least one of the following actions. So one is work experience, one is intentional purchasing, and the last is culture change. So businesses can commit to do 1, 2, or all 3 of these when joining Portland Means Progress. And on the coming slides, I'll talk a little bit about each of them and what it looks like to engage in those actions with your organization. The way we came up with these was through over a year of community engagement that include community members and businesses, as well as organizations that serve community members and businesses, to say, we're seeing clear outcomes, that there are disparities in terms of racial outcomes in the city of Portland. We know that businesses want to engage in this space and be active participants in taking action to shift outcomes. And so what are the ways that businesses have the most muscle and the most opportunity to make these changes? So of course, these 3 are not the only ways that businesses can take action, but these are the 3 that we felt were scalable, as well as really had the biggest opportunity for impact when businesses take these actions. So first, I'll talk a little bit about the work experience component. And Jacob, it looks like someone's in the waiting room, just so you know. Okay. So when businesses commit to work experience, they're committing to create work experience opportunities for underrepresented youth and young professionals of color. We do this mainly through internship programs. So businesses are committing to pay for the interns and provide structure, as well as complete Portland Means Progress annual reporting every single January. So there's no cost to join Portland Means Progress. It's fully funded by the city. All the resources we provide are funded by the city. The real mechanism to stay engaged is that we require organizations to complete that annual reporting process every year, so that we can understand our impact as well as build programming for the coming year. Also, there's no cost to join Portland Means Progress, but a lot of times there is a cost in terms of implementing the actions, right? So businesses who do choose to commit to work experience, it's on them to pay for the internship and to create that structure. So you might be thinking, so then what does Portland Means Progress do? How does Portland Means Progress support me? if I do that. So the way we do that is providing access to workshops with tangible takeaways on offering meaningful work experiences, onboarding interns, building inclusive practices. We have a lot of partners in the city, so we can make introductions based on what you're needing for your intern to vetted partners who can provide connections to candidates. As well as you get engagement with other businesses in the city who are engaging in this work, and you can learn from them. That's been a key outcome that we've seen is the businesses gain a lot from Portland Means Progress, but they gain the most from each other. And so just by building this community of businesses and organizations that value this work, we're seeing really valuable outcomes of building those relationships between businesses so that there's shared learning and shared impact. So Portland Means Progress launched in 2019. We started with 50 early adopter businesses. And so our impact, we've been tracking every single year since then. Since 2019, so we're 5 years into the initiative, Portland Means Progress businesses have collectively hosted 1,110 interns. I think that's something that's been really powerful in the initiative, as I think a lot of times small and medium-sized businesses want to make a change, but it feels less impactful if you say, well, I can only hire one intern. Well, it becomes really impactful both for that one intern, as well as when you look at the collective impact of the organizations together, it starts to feel like you're making meaningful movement. And I think it's really motivating for the folks engaged to see, I'm not doing this alone. I don't have to do it alone. I'm doing it in a community of folks who care about this. And so I'm making an impact in the scale that I can, and I'm part of a bigger movement. The things I'm listing here are things that we just offered in the last year. In the last year, we partnered with Emerging Leaders, which is now called, I'm so sorry, The Contingent has reframed it. We offered trainings on retention and recruitment practices. We've also been building our partnership up with SummerWorks and The Contingent to create more connections for businesses seeking interns. I think it's really powerful to know that these organizations exist. That was one of our early findings, was there's actually a lot of qualified candidates and a lot of interns seeking employment. There's a lot of businesses seeking it, and it really helps to plug into an existing program. I believe last year, Emerging Leaders had something like 400 to 500 candidates of color apply for internships, and about 100 businesses were able to sign on as host businesses. So it really shows that there's a lot of talent, and building those connections with businesses that are able to host them is really powerful. For folks sitting here listening, thinking, okay, that's something that feels really interesting to me. It's good to know that the window has closed for this summer, obviously, but the timeline each year is to sign up by January for the following summer. So I actually think it's helpful to hear about it now, because you can say to yourself, maybe that's something we can budget for next year. Maybe that's something we can think about. And if you go on the Portland Means Progress webpage and look at our Take Action section, you can find a little bit more detail on the cost of each of the programs between SummerWorks and Emerging Leaders. And obviously there's lots of great internship programs out there. These are the ones that we partner with at this time. So that's work experience. The next is intentional purchasing. As a reminder, businesses can commit to 1, 2, or all 3. So in engaging in intentional purchasing, organizations commit to purchase from local BIPOC-owned businesses, and again, complete the Portland Means Progress annual reporting each year. We've actually seen a lot of impact in the intentional purchasing space, and so we've been able to build out a lot of resources. One is that we're able to connect businesses with a network of over 1,000 local BIPOC-owned businesses. BIPOC is Black, Indigenous, and people of color-owned businesses. We heard from a lot of businesses through our annual reporting process, hey, actually, I could do a lot more purchasing that's intentional and local, but I'm having trouble finding a vendor for X. I'm having trouble finding a vendor for Y. And so we were able to bring on a purchasing navigator specifically to support Portland Means Progress businesses, and she can assist with direct introductions to local BIPOC-owned businesses based on your purchasing needs. So if you're to say to yourself, we're a pretty small organization, we don't actually buy that much, but next month we're hosting an event and we do need a caterer, or in a couple months, I'm actually re-upping my contract for landscaping, or hey, once every 5 years we have to paint. It becomes really hard to build ongoing relationships with vendors in that space. And we heard that from a lot of purchasing businesses. And that's where our purchasing navigator can be really helpful, because she's doing this on behalf of over 100 purchasing businesses. And so she's starting to build up who she can make connections to. We offer vendor fairs and events to build relationships with new vendors. So an example is in March of this year, we hosted a catering fair. We brought in, 15 caterers from the Mercatus directory. And we had them bring in small bites of their food so that the purchasing businesses could go and try the food and then build new relationships for future events. I'm super sympathetic to that you say to yourself, I don't really want to use a new caterer because if I haven't tried the food, I really need it to be good. When I host an event, I need it to be good. And so it really helps when you can go and try a bunch of people's food and think, oh, that'd be good for this event, and this would be good for that event. We also offer procurement and industry-specific programming. Since the launch of the initiative in 2019, Portland Means Progress businesses have collectively spent over $465 million at local BIPOC-owned businesses. Something we're actually finding is that businesses are actually even really struggling with their tracking of their spend. So this is a heavy undercount in reality, because a lot of businesses said, hey, I know I improved my purchasing this year. I don't actually have a solid number. But it ranges in size of spend, right? We have some of these major employers who are doing multi-million-dollar projects. We have smaller employers who are making small contracts. Both are meaningful because it's engaging with businesses across the spectrum. What we did in the last year to support the businesses was, as I shared, we expanded the Mercatus purchasing liaison role to be able to make more connections between purchasing businesses and vendors. And we started convening the supplier diversity roundtable for large employers. So we really found, again, that the needs between the 0 to 10 person employers for intentional purchasing was wildly different than the needs for employers with 500 plus employees, maybe with a presence in multiple states, even internationally. And so we're building out different programming based on the needs of the different audiences. And last, I'll talk a little bit about culture change. So this is the last focus point for engagement. So organizations commit to creating culture change within their organization by providing diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI training, and tools for staff and leadership. And again, with all of the engagement, businesses complete Portland Means Progress annual reporting every January to stay engaged for the coming year and make new commitments for the coming year. Again, that's something we've really found that's helpful as folks sign on. I think there can be a temptation to sign up for everything. You say, I really care about this work. I'm going to sign up for work experience, intentional purchasing, culture change, because I care about all of those. And really what we found is it's actually really helpful to pick one of the 3 actions just to start. Every year, businesses can recommit and re-engage. Every year, businesses can report back on their progress on any of the actions, even if it wasn't their formal commitment. But we heard from a lot of businesses, especially early in the initiative, when we said, what's been most meaningful for your engagement? Folks said, it really helped me to focus. I felt overwhelmed by the need I'm seeing in my community. I felt overwhelmed by both trying to run a business as well as do it in a way that's in line with my values. And it really helped to say, I can't do everything. So this year, I'm really going to go hard on X, whatever it is. We've never hosted an intern. So this year we're hosting an intern. We're really proud of it. We think intentional purchasing and culture change are important too, but this is where we're focusing, right? I think that really actually brought value, because then at the end of the year, it didn't feel like little bits and pieces of lots and lots of things. It felt like really a meaningful and measurable impact on a commitment that was made. And then folks can say, okay, so this year we're either going to take on more or we're going to go deeper on the thing we're already working on. But folks really said that level of focus helped them be more impactful, and it helped them have something at the end of the year that they could hang their hat on and say, this was a priority for us and we did it, and now we're continuing. So how we assist organizations in culture change, as you can imagine, culture change is really challenging because it's so organization specific, both the needs and the challenges that folks have. One thing that's very interesting is when we launched the initiative in 2019, both community members and racial equity practitioners shared with us loud and clear, hey, move forward with work experience. There are so many wonderful work experience providers that need more businesses to sign up. Go full steam ahead. Intentional purchasing, there are so many local businesses owned by people of color. Move with urgency, move with speed. And with culture change, they said it's urgent, but pause. Because there's a lot of risk in starting a DEI journey within an organization without a really thoughtful approach to it. And so they said, you don't want to rush into this one as you launch the initiative. So actually in 2019, we didn't offer any culture change resources out of the gate, because we used that entire year to start building up what it would look like for us to support businesses in this space, acknowledging that Portland Means Progress is not the organization or initiative that's actually doing any of it for the businesses, right? The businesses are the ones making the commitments and moving work forward, but we're providing resources and support to help folks do it well as identify barriers that we're starting to see wow, tons of folks are facing this same barrier. How can we support it at scale to help people get unstuck and really keep moving on the work that they value? So in 2020, we released a culture change roadmap. So if you'll just forgive me, I'm going to bounce out of this really quick so that I can share with you a link to the culture change roadmap. I invite you while I'm talking. I do not mind if I see your eyes go off to the side of the screen and I see you bouncing through it. In fact, I love that. The culture change roadmap took us over a year. We worked on it with 5 racial equity practitioners. Again, that's something that we heard really loudly is there's not one right way to do it. It needs to be something that says, here's some considerations. And it's interesting when we first launched it, we heard from a lot of folks. It was very exciting. We actually heard from a lot of folks globally who said that it really helped them because they were feeling so stuck in really questioning and arguing about what type of language to use or where to start or what to do, that it really gave a grounding piece to say, here's some of the things to think about as you engage in this work. Obviously, you could read the entire culture change roadmap and still just be at the beginning of your journey, but at least it's something to get grounded into. We also heard from a lot of folks, especially in 2020, when there was so much movement with Black Lives Matter and with racial justice, that there was a desire to make sure that there were trusted resources. And I think folks who really value the work and want to do it well, were struggling to say, I mean, sure, I can Google, but I don't actually know what's grounded in a sound theory of change. And so that's something that we're really excited that we rolled out was the culture change roadmap. We provide access to DEI knowledge and strategies through events and training. An example is last year in 2023, we offered a 5-week series on strategic DEI implementation. We heard from a lot of organizations, yeah, you know, we did this training, we updated this policy, but I'm not really seeing any movement. And it felt like a lot of folks were struggling with being strategic. So they were investing a lot of time and resources, but not necessarily having a sound strategy. A lot of the resources we provide, we don't provide them every single year because as you can imagine, we have folks that have been engaged for 5 years now. So we occasionally re-offer things, but we also try to offer fresh things all the time. In this year's annual reporting, we heard from a lot of businesses that they had a very strong and grounded DEI plan, but where they were struggling was with really sticky questions, really nuanced questions. And because they were working on it internally, they felt kind of like they were in a silo trying to figure out these really tricky things themselves. So in September, we're going to host a training called Answering Some of Your Toughest DEI Questions. And in the registration, we're saying, give it to us. What are you struggling with right now? And then the entire training is going to be built around that. And we have 2 racial equity practitioners that are going to navigate that space with us. We'll have small groups where folks can then also, because again, there's not one right way to do things, but it can be so helpful to have a group that you're working on this with and it feels grounded and sound in your approach. We also have new tools to track and manage DEI commitments. We provide dashboards through the annual reporting. Businesses get an individual dashboard every year that shows progress against their commitments. And then we also have connections to equity practitioners using a searchable platform. Again, we heard from racial equity practitioners saying, hey, I'm out here. We heard from businesses saying we're having trouble getting connected with folks who can advise us in this work. And so creating that space where more folks are making connections to do the work together has been really impactful. So since we launched the Culture Change Roadmap, it's had almost 40,000 views in 90 countries. We also provided, as I shared, that 5-week intensive course for strategic DEI implementation. We actually offered 2 series, one for execs and one for internal champions, since the needs are so different. We offered employee engagement series through painting murals with BIPOC artists at local businesses. We hosted an inclusive policy lab. So again, we heard from a lot of businesses that they're doing a lot of work in terms of culture, in terms of interpersonal work, and they needed support with how to revisit their policies to make sure that their policies were thoughtful. We partnered with the Technology Association of Oregon to do a 2-part series called Making Work Work that was focused on HR people and how they can engage in the work. And we also heard from a lot of businesses that some of the most powerful things are not necessarily trainings, but shared learning. So we created a teach-in series where Portland Means Progress businesses could share either things that went completely awesome or things that went completely terrible and really share what they learned from it and share how other businesses can also gain from those learnings. So that's what we offered last year. Again, as I said, we offered new things each year. So this year we're looking at offering that session in September that's focused on the toughest DEI questions, because that's what we're starting to hear a lot of need for. So if you're curious what the makeup of Portland Means Progress looks like right now, there, at the end of our annual reporting process in 2024, which was looking back at 2023, we surveyed 134 businesses. 51 are women-owned, 29 were BIPOC-owned. They represent almost 40,000 employees in the city of Portland. These businesses range from one-person solopreneurs up to, I think, nearly 15,000 employees is our largest employer. And they range industries. So you can imagine it makes it a super vibrant group, and it makes it really challenging for us to build solid programming because the needs are so different across the businesses. And so we're trying to identify how we can support folks at scale. So we use that annual reporting to be able to inform both our impact and reflection, as well as looking forward. So what do folks need? How can we actually support to make sure it's a meaningful initiative that's actually helping businesses move the work forward that they want to be moving forward? Here are some of the quotes of some of the businesses who have been engaged with us. Again, I think there's a few ways people are finding impact, but I think the biggest one is through connection. So by joining a group of like-minded organizations, it's all local companies who are moving it forward and helping focus the work so that you can feel like you're making a meaningful impact in the things that you care about. In 2023, more than half of the Portland Means Progress businesses connected with other businesses on their commitments, which I think is really important to us because we're seeing, after 5 years of getting data from companies, we're able to see that the businesses who are most successful in their commitments are the ones who are connecting with other Portland Means Progress businesses. So I want to share a little bit about the annual reporting. I think it's important because it is really the one requirement of being engaged in Portland Means Progress. As I said, there's no cost to join. It's fully funded by the city of Portland. Each year in January, we have annual reporting. It's required. It's actually confidential. We do it through a third party. That's intentional because in our early engagement with the early adopter businesses back in 2019, we heard from a lot of the businesses, hey, I'm in it. I want to do it, but I want to do it because I think it's important, not because I want some stamp that says I did it. I want to engage in this because I want to be a part of a meaningful movement. And I think there was some hesitation because obviously Prosper Portland is the city of Portland, and there was a desire to have responses be confidential so that they can be accountable and honest and authentic. So we work through a third-party provider. Some of the responses we get back directly, like quotes of what was most meaningful, but the numbers like how many interns did you host? How much money did you spend at local BIPOC-owned businesses? Those we only get in aggregate. And then the businesses themselves that are committed get an individual dashboard that each year shows how they're building upon their commitments. So we use this data. We go through every single response that we receive. We want to understand our impact and build our impact report each year. We use it to build our programming. So again, if we'll see, wow, 30 businesses all said they're struggling with connecting with local BIPOC vendors, then we said, okay, what does it look like for us to help support that at scale? So it's not the same as me then saying, hey, business A, you said X, let me help you with that specifically and provide individual TA. It's more like saying, wow, this is a barrier in the city of Portland for businesses engaging in this work, and we want to remove that barrier or at least make it less of a challenge. We also just use it to hold ourselves accountable, both the businesses, but Portland Means Progress also. We want as an initiative to make sure that the interventions that we're supporting with are actually meaningful. And if they're not, that we pivot them to make them meaningful. So what's coming up for Portland Means Progress for folks who are committed to the initiative? We will continue to build connections using our Mercatus Purchasing Navigator. So again, she's available. So as Portland Means Progress businesses say, hey, I'm trying to think of some of the interesting ones. We had one business who said, I need to change my drug testing. I'm required to do drug testing as part of my hiring process, and I can't find a local BIPOC drug tester. And so our Mercatus Purchasing Navigator was able to find a local Black-owned doctor's office that was able to add drug testing to their services. And so that's a new ongoing purchase that's going on in a different business line for that business. So she can also help be creative if there's space you say, yeah, for years we've been trying to ship this purchase and we can't find vendors that can support us. It's also helpful because if she can't find it, then that's something we're tracking because we say, okay, that's a gap in our local ecosystem that we need to build. We have a members area for organizations. It has recordings of past trainings. It has the Equity Commons, which is our searchable platform for local racial equity practitioners. It has dashboards, templates that you can use. It has an intentional purchasing toolkit. So if you're having trouble tracking your purchases, it has substitute W-9s you can use. We have that upcoming training in September. We're also going to host a big celebration in October for the businesses that's celebrating our 5 years and growing. So really pausing to celebrate our collective impact and looking at what it looks like to continue the work. We have our supplier diversity roundtable for large employers. Another thing we just launched actually just a couple weeks ago, and it's open to the public. So again, I'm going to pop out just so I can share the link with you. We heard from a lot of especially smaller organizations. I can't find the chat. Give me one brief moment. Here we go. We heard from a lot of smaller organizations. Hey, I'm loving the resources you're putting on. I'm loving the support. And I'm a small business. I can't go to an event on September 17th at 9 a.m. Right. And they're like, but I want to be able to connect with things and engage with things. So we just released, this is our first blog post. We're working with local racial equity practitioners to share guidance and wisdom that's accessible at folks' own pace and time. And it's available to the public, which we always love as much as possible to make things that are just open to anyone. So I'll share the sign up form. I had a few other links I wanted to make sure I shared with y'all as we were engaging in this work together, because I think it's really important to me that even if you're not able to join the initiative at this time, or you want to think about it, there's so many resources available, like the Culture Change Roadmap, like our blog, that we'd love for you to be able to engage with our work and share about it where you see it to be meaningful and helpful to you. But it's something that we want to make sure that you're able to access anything you can that's helpful and helps you move work forward that you find important. So I'll drop that in the chat. Also, I'll drop our LinkedIn where we also share things that are open to the public. Hopefully that link works. So I'll pause there and see if there's any questions.
Thank you so much for that great overview of an organization I think a lot of people are unaware of, but a topic that I think everybody is trying to prioritize right now. But they just don't know where to start. And just making it really simple by identifying these 3 things, I think is a great starting point for organizations that are looking to start doing this work. Yeah, it looks like we have a question from Gail. Hi, Gail.
Hi, I'm Gail from Thrive East PDX, and we're in the Midway business area. And so my question was about your annual reports and your data. Do you have, for your 39,000 participants, do you have a zip code breakout for where those folks are located, and the same kind of information, generic information for where your interns have landed over the 4 years?
That is a great question. So I'll drop in the chat. Our About Us page has a link to our impact report. So yes and no. I do have the addresses for all the businesses committed to Portland Means Progress. I haven't actually mapped it to see where they land. That's an interesting, I'm just going to take a note. That's an interesting thing to think about. Thanks, Laura. For the interns, because we're working through multiple providers, I think the providers have all that information, but we haven't split it out between which businesses are engaged in Portland Means Progress versus which businesses came to those work experience providers organically. But it is something that kind of over time could get pulled out. I will say with work systems as well as with the Emerging Leaders Program, which now my brain's not helping me remember what they rebranded to, so I apologize, everyone. They do capture that information, and it's work systems has a more narrow space because they're the regional workforce board. I believe the contingent has a wider base. I think they might be all over Oregon that they serve candidates from.
Okay. Thank you, Gail. And it looks like we've got a question from Angie. Hi, Angie.
Hi, it's nice to be here. Last year I saw a call for internships and I almost applied to participate with my business, but I work virtually from home. I have an online business. I could really use an intern, but I really felt uncomfortable with my business model inviting an intern in because I work out of my house and it didn't feel very professional. So I wondered if I was making my own barrier or if you guys have suggestions for companies like my own.
That's a great question. And I just want to like call out the thoughtfulness. I just really appreciate the thoughtfulness because that's actually been something we've been working on is it's always fun to share the number of interns hosted, but what we really want to share are the number of interns that had positive experiences, right? Like that's actually the goal, is not. And so the one thing I'd flag for you is that's where the contingent could be a good resource because those are college and graduate level interns. And so I think then you could look to host a fully remote intern that maybe
Okay.
doesn't even have to come into your home, I think, during the pandemic. So that might be something, whereas maybe a high school level intern, you wouldn't be as comfortable hiring a fully remote intern. But that might be something to think about. It's a good
Okay.
question, though, that I can also ask if there's any best practices that folks have.
I think that would be great. And I think when there's a call next year, maybe to even call out those types of businesses, understanding that there's a different, to say that there are interns available for us, and it's not only brick and mortar businesses that should be applying for interns.
Yes.
That would be great. Thank you. And I
Yeah, no, great question. Thank
appreciate your
you.
time, and I appreciate you guys are doing this.
Thank you, Angie. And Andrea, that actually brings up a question I had around, you've mentioned that Portland Means Progress partners with some organizations that assist with the internship process. Do any of these organizations possibly help with the cost associated with hiring an intern? Have businesses been successful, getting assistance with that?
I believe some years SummerWorks might offer that. I have seen call outs where they say that they can help support financially. I also know just in general, because those are high school level interns, I think it's a less costly program to engage in. We once upon a time were able to offer a grant program to support internships through the contingent. We just ran out of funding for that. But I think SummerWorks at times has offered programming for that. And when they do, we try to email it out to the businesses. And usually it's specific to small businesses are able to access that resource.
That's great. And you mentioned that since they are really focused on providing work experience during the summer months when students aren't in school, January is around the time where businesses should start thinking about getting that organized for the following summer.
That's for sure with the contingent. I can't quite recall the SummerWorks one. And they also have a program called YouthWex that is year round. But again, those are, I think, age 16 to 24 candidates through the work systems program. I will say as folks are thinking about their budgets and thinking about, if the work experience one is rising to the top for you, just as you're budgeting, I should warn you, you will fall in love with your intern and the quality of work that they are able to provide for you. And so we at Prosper Portland hosted an intern through the contingent, I think 3 years in a row. I think 3 years in a row, we ended up extending their internship through the school year down to part-time while they were in school, but they were just far too helpful. And as we all know, it takes a long time to onboard people. And once they're onboarded and they're so productive and helpful, it's like we couldn't let it go. So I should just warn you that it's one of those risks that you will take on if you choose to go that route.
Absolutely. I'm sure, once they kind of get in the groove of things, they become indispensable at that point. And do these organizations also kind of help the businesses figure out, okay, how can I create a role that's beneficial for both the intern and for our organization? So we feel like we're not wasting their time and we're not, being burdened by something that's not actually beneficial for us. Is there a way to work with an organization to kind of craft something that's mutually beneficial? 100%
yes. I also think, with the contingent, they have specific job categories again, I think we're all learning that focus really helps us. So they actually have specific job categories. They say, if you choose one of these job categories, we can guarantee we'll send you at least 2 candidates that are qualified for your role. And they offer a lot of programming, like at the start of the summer, they offer a DEIB assessment, which is their diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. They offer a lot of resources about solid onboarding. They really do help provide the framework. And that's part of why we do try to support businesses to go that direction. We are definitely not in the interest of like starting our own internship program, right? It's like, we want to push the businesses to a space where there's the resources to be successful. So Yeah, they do. They do actually really help a lot. They even have some requirements that even myself, when I was hosting an intern, I was like, oh my gosh, my job description's due. You know, it's like, but that pressure and that timeline helps you do it well, because then you actually have a solid job description for your intern, you're interviewing candidates, you know, it sets yourself up for success also, like you said, Jacob.
Yeah, that's super helpful. Just because what the definition of even what an intern is has changed so significantly over the past decade that yeah, I think businesses would appreciate having some support in figuring out something that's great for everybody. So that's really great to know.
Well, and I think also with some of these job categories can help you decide what you want. Like it's helpful to see like, oh, they have business operations interns. Actually, I could really use help with this standalone project that I just haven't had capacity for. Or, oh, they have marketing interns. Yes, I need a refresh on the content on our website as well as our social, or whatever the thing is. I think that can also help you find that focus that makes it meaningful for both sides.
That's great, super helpful. And more information, I'm sure, can be found on the Portland Means Progress website, as far as how to get that process going. My next question is just about intentional purchasing. Now, you mentioned that there's a specific person that members can go to figure out who might be the best business, or which might be the best business for a specific need that they might have. Is there a business directory that people can access if they don't want to go through a specific person, or how does that work?
I love that question. Okay, here's the Mercatus directory. It has over 1,000 local businesses owned by people of color on it. It's open to the public. So yes, please use it. And in fact, with our Mercatus Purchasing Navigator, if there's requests for purchasing that she can't find on the directory, she aims to then go recruit local businesses to the directory so that we're building up that resource for just everyone to be able to access, that it's more complete.
That's great. So if they're, check the directory first, and if there's something that you're looking for that's not on there, reach out to the navigator, and they can perhaps work with the business to find something that would work for you.
Mm-hmm. And again, you can imagine the value of that. Oh, I want catering, but I need it to be boxed lunches. And you end up going down the list and it gets really hard. And then you end up going back to the same ones you already purchased from a million times. And I think it makes the work we do much more engaging for our partners and staff when we can make it fresh every time. But making it fresh every time is a lot of work that a lot of times we don't have capacity for. So it's nice to outsource some of that capacity.
Old habits, they tend to be difficult to break. So giving them the tools to make it a little bit easier is definitely appreciated. Does anybody else have questions for Andrea about Portland Means Progress? Or does anybody currently participate in Portland Means Progress and want to share their experience? What does the sign up process look like, Andrea?
Jacob, I love it. I had that teed up. I just dropped in the chat. It's a really straightforward join form. Again, my recommendation is just that folks choose to only start with one, because I think it really helps with that focus. You can always do more. So please feel welcome to join us. Again, like I said, there's no cost. And once you sign up, you're automatically added to our email list. I'll make sure you get access to that upcoming training. I should add, all of the resources we provide are intended to be more like an a la carte option. So like I said, if you say, hey, that training sounds great, I can't go, we don't view that as like, oh, wow, that person's not really engaged in the initiative. Folks are kind of plugging in the different ways. And it's really exciting to see that different organizations and businesses have different muscle, right? And so we're kind of all showing up with, well, here's where I have an impact, and here's the resources that help me have a bigger impact. And so you can kind of access where it feels meaningful. So if you're feeling jazzed and you want to sign up right now, I invite you to. Please join us. We would love it. If you're sitting there thinking, I'd love to in the future, but I'm not sure that I can right now, if you just email me at hello@portlandmeansprogress.com, I can add you to our email list just for interested parties, that we do share things that are open to the public, where you can add us on LinkedIn. And also, if you're not in a space to sign up right now, but you know that others might be in your network, please share it. Like we want folks to know about this. It's again, a resource at no cost to support businesses to do work that they find important and impactful. And so we'd love to get the word out. And if you can help us do that, even if you can't sign up yourself right now, that is impactful. That is important to us. So just any way that you feel. Yes, I can drop it in the chat. I'm going to say hello@portlandmeansprogress.com. And my joke that I always tell, so it's now my old joke, is that it's like the Wizard of Oz. So if you email that email, it's really just me. So I'm behind the curtain. So we would love for y'all to engage in this work in the way that feels appropriate and meaningful to you.
And just a reminder to everybody, Venture Portland does offer grants to assist with DEI initiatives and work at your organization. So if it's something you're interested in doing, but you are worried about, the startup costs of that, this September we're going to be releasing our fall grants, and that would be a great grant project to start thinking about with your boards as something to apply for funding to do.
That's super
Okay.
exciting. And I should add too, Venture Portland is a Portland Means Progress business.
That's right. That's right. I think we came on board at the very beginning, actually 2019, somewhere
Yeah.
around then. And we've been, really consciously trying to take steps forward. And like you said, start simple with something like, the intentional purchasing or the work experience, and then, work towards the culture change bit, which we are still, in the process of doing. And it's definitely not something that can be done overnight, but, taking that first step is one of the most important things you can do. Yeah, Gail.
Yeah, I just want to hear a little bit more about the workshops you offer. For instance, I looked at your work, your past workshops. And so my question has more to do with some basic business development information, especially on contracting and regulations and things. So if you don't offer those kinds of things, who at Prosper does offer more basic workshops on business?
That's a great question.
Small
Can I make
business.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, that they would need because they don't have the resources to be everything for their business. Yeah.
And I just want to make sure I'm understanding the question, Gail. You're talking more like business growth type workshops and business operations.
Yeah. So financials, making sure they're complying with regulations. Just some basic understanding about how you grow your business, both through contracting as well as just marketing, contracting for opportunities that might work for you. Yeah.
Yes, that's a great question. So kind of at Prosper Portland, we view it of like, I'm offering inclusion programming, and then there's other programming that offers growth programming and business operations programming. That would be more through the Inclusive Business Resource Network and the Portland Small Business Hub. If you'll give me a minute, I can pull up some of those links to share some of that. They also have an email list that I would have to ask them. Maybe Jacob, I can email you afterwards on how folks can sign up for that, because they then email out specific small business workshop opportunities when there's grant openings. Of course, Prosper Portland has an email list too that's for the broader business community. So I can include those in terms of the growth programming that's available and that folks can plug into. I'll write that down to send later, because otherwise you guys are gonna have to sit here while I Google.
Definitely. I plan on following up with everyone that RSVP'd with an email that includes all the links that we've talked about, and even maybe some of the slides that you showed, just so people can have that to kind of mull over, talk to their boards about, and then think about what the next steps are going to be. Okay. Any other questions for Andrea regarding Portland's means progress and any of the pieces about that? If you're curious about intentional purchasing, culture change, any general questions about the program? All right. Well, thank you so much, Andrea, for taking the time to be here. And let's keep the conversation going. I'll follow up with an email with your contact information, and let's get started on this, because this is important work, and I know a lot of businesses want to make it a priority. So, thank you all for being here, and please let us know if there's anything else that you need. Otherwise, we'll say goodbye for today, and you'll get a few minutes back in your day, and have a great day, and we'll talk to you all soon. Take care.
Thanks all.